Most people think success is about making noise. They think it's about telling everyone what you're going to do. They believe success comes from constant networking, endless talking, and perpetual motion. But I've found the opposite to be true. Success begins with silence. It begins with you. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met a young man in one of my seminars. Bright-eyed, ambitious, full of energy. He came up to me afterward and said, "Mr. Rohn, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. I smiled and asked him, "What are you doing right now to become that millionaire?" He looked puzzled. Well, he said, "I'm telling everyone about my plans." I said to him, "The problem isn't telling everyone about your plans. The problem is that you're not working on yourself." You see, success isn't what you say you'll do. Success is what you silently commit to doing every single day. When you focus on yourself, you're making a decision that your own personal development is worth the investment of time. And time, my friends, is more valuable than money. You can always get more money, but you can't get more time. Now, what does it mean to focus on yourself? Let me break it down for you. First, it means developing your mind. The mind is like a garden. You can either tend it with care, planting seeds of wisdom and knowledge, or you can neglect it and watch the weeds grow. Your choice. I read an hour every day. Been doing it for decades. Why? Because leaders are readers. The books you don't read won't help you. The ideas you don't expose yourself to won't inspire you. The knowledge you don't have can't guide you. Some people say, "Jim, I just don't have time to read." I always respond, you don't have time not to read. The few minutes you invest in reading today could save you years of struggle down the road. Second, focusing on yourself means developing your skills. Whatever industry you're in, become a master at it. If you're in sales, master sales. If you're in management, master management. If you're in service, master service. Average skill produces average income. Exceptional skill produces exceptional income. I tell people, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Why? Because if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. Third, focusing on yourself means developing your character. Character isn't made in a crisis, it's only exhibited. Character is built daily through the choices you make when no one is watching. Integrity, honesty, reliability, these aren't just nice words, they're the foundation of every lasting success. I remember a businessman who once told me, "Jim, I can't afford to be honest in my business." I looked him straight in the eye and said, "You can't afford not to be honest." 6 months later, his business collapsed. Why? Because the marketplace has a long memory. Now, let's talk about the second part of our philosophy today, staying silent. There's a remarkable power in silence. Not the silence of inaction, but the silence of focused purpose. The silence that says, "I'm too busy working on my dreams to talk about them all day." Most people talk too much and do too little. They announce their goals to everyone who will listen, seeking approval and validation before they've earned it. But here's what I've learned. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to actually do it. Why is that? Because talking gives you a false sense of accomplishment. Your brain can't tell the difference between talking about something and actually doing it. Both release dopamine, that feel-good chemical. So when you talk about your grand plans, you feel good. So good, in fact, that you might not feel the need to act on them. I tell my students, don't tell me about your 40-year plan. Tell me about your next 40 minutes. What are you going to do in the next hour that will move you closer to your goals? Silence also means listening. The most successful people I know are not the greatest talkers, they're the greatest listeners. They listen to the market. They listen to their customers. They listen to their employees. And most importantly, they listen to that small voice inside them that guides them toward their purpose. In my early days, I was fortunate to have Mr. Schoaf as my mentor. He told me, "Jim, you need to learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job." That simple advice changed my life. But here's the thing, he didn't have to say it many times. I heard it once and I listened. I really listened. Most people hear but don't listen. They're so busy preparing their response that they miss the wisdom being offered to them. Don't be one of those people. When wisdom speaks, listen. Now, when you combine these two principles, focusing on yourself and staying silent, something magical happens. Everything begins to fall into place. Your finances improve because you're making better decisions based on education, not desperation. Your relationships improve because you're bringing more value to them. Your health improves because you're disciplined enough to make the right choices, not just the easy ones. Your happiness improves because you're not seeking it from external sources, but generating it from internal growth. But here's the key, this doesn't happen overnight. It's not a microwave process, it's a crock pot process. It takes time, it takes consistency. It takes faith in the process even when you don't see immediate results. I often tell the story of the Chinese bamboo tree. You plant the seed and water it, but nothing happens for the first year. You keep watering it the second year, but still nothing happens. Third year, fourth year, still nothing visible. Most people would give up. But if you keep watering it in the fifth year, something remarkable happens. The Chinese bamboo tree grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. Now the question is, did it grow 90 feet in 6 weeks, or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years? The answer is obvious. It was the consistent, silent, focused attention that made all the difference. Your life works the same way. You might not see the results of your personal development today or tomorrow, but rest assured the growth is happening beneath the surface. And when it finally breaks through, everyone will be amazed at your overnight success that was actually years in the making. Let me give you some practical steps to implement this philosophy in your life. First, create a personal development plan. What books will you read? What skills will you develop? What habits will you cultivate? Be specific. Don't just say, I'll read more. Say, I'll read 30 minutes every morning before breakfast. Second, practice the art of silence. Before sharing your plans with others, ask yourself, am I seeking validation or am I seeking valuable input? If it's the former, keep it to yourself. Let your results speak for you. Third, find a place for daily reflection. It could be your car during your commute, a park bench, or a quiet corner in your home. Use this time to think, to plan, to evaluate your progress. The quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life. Fourth, surround yourself with the right people. You don't need a lot of friends, but you do need the right ones. Find people who challenge you, who make you think, who make you better just by being around them. Fifth, become a master of your emotions. Don't let temporary feelings derail your permanent goals. Discipline your disappointments. Channel your anger into determination. Transform your fear into fuel. I remember a time when I was just starting out, struggling to make ends meet. I had more money at the end of the money than money at the end of the month. I could have complained. I could have blamed the economy, the government, my employer. But instead, I asked myself, what am I missing? What do I need to learn? That question led me to Mr. Schoaf, and the rest, as they say, is history. But it began with looking inward, not outward. It began with taking responsibility, not placing blame. You see, the moment you take full responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you claim your power to change it. Not some things, everything. Most people want to change their circumstances, but not themselves. Yet, the only way to change your circumstances is to first change yourself. If you want more, you must become more. It's as simple and as difficult as that. Now, some of you might be thinking, Jim, this all sounds great in theory, but I've got real problems. I've got bills to pay, kids to feed, a job I hate. I understand. I've been there. But let me tell you something important. Your problems are smaller than you think, and you are bigger than you know. Your problems seem big because you're standing too close to them. Step back. Get perspective. Ask yourself, will this matter 5 years from now? Most of the time, the answer is no. And even for those problems that will matter 5 years from now, the solution is the same: grow. Grow your mind so you can see opportunities others miss. Grow your skills so you can command a higher salary. Grow your savings so you can invest in your future. Grow your connections so you can access resources beyond your own. Grow your character so you can sleep well at night regardless of your bank balance. But growth requires silence. It requires concentration. It requires focus. In our noisy world, silence has become a rare commodity. Everyone's talking, texting, posting, sharing. But creation happens in silence. Ideas form in silence. Clarity emerges from silence. I once heard a story about a young executive who was invited to the home of a very successful CEO. The young man was eager to learn the secrets of success, so he peppered the CEO with questions throughout dinner. The CEO listened patiently and then said, let's continue this conversation on my porch. They sat on the porch overlooking a beautiful lake. The CEO didn't say a word for 30 minutes. Just sat there watching the sunset. The young executive, uncomfortable with the silence, finally blurted out, I thought we were going to discuss success. The CEO smiled and said, we are. The first lesson is learning to be comfortable with silence. Because in silence, you hear the whispers of opportunity that others miss in their noise. That story has stayed with me for years because it illustrates a profound truth. The answers you seek are often found in the silence you avoid. Most people can't stand to be alone with their thoughts. They constantly seek distraction, television, social media, gossip. Anything to avoid confronting themselves. But it's in that confrontation, that quiet self-examination, that real growth begins. I've found that the most successful people I know are comfortable with silence. They use it as a tool, a resource. They create space in their day for thinking, for planning, for evaluating. They're not afraid to be alone with their thoughts because they've learned to master them. Now, focusing on yourself doesn't mean being selfish. Quite the opposite. By developing yourself, you increase your capacity to help others. By growing your income, you expand your ability to give. By mastering your skills, you enhance your value to the marketplace. The greatest gift you can give to others is the example of your own life working. Not your advice, not your opinion, but your example. I remember a father who came to me concerned about his son, Jim. He said, "My son won't listen to me about the importance of education. What should I say to him?" I asked, "What books are you currently reading?" He looked embarrassed and admitted he hadn't read a book since high school. I suggested, "Don't say anything to your son about education. Instead, let him see you reading. Let him catch you in the act of educating yourself. Your example will speak louder than your words ever could." 3 months later, he called me excited. "Jim, you won't believe it. I started reading every night after dinner." Said nothing to my son about it. Last week I found him in his room with a book. When I asked him about it, he said he figured if reading was important enough for me to do every day, maybe there was something to it. That's the power of silent example. It's more persuasive than 1,000 lectures. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you're setting an example that others can't ignore. You're demonstrating through your actions what's truly important. And ultimately, that's how you change the world, not by trying to change others, but by changing yourself. Let me share another aspect of this philosophy that's often overlooked. When you focus on yourself, you gain clarity about what truly matters to you. Most people live their lives based on other people's values, other people's expectations, other people's definitions of success. They pursue goals that don't resonate with their souls, then wonder why achievement feels hollow. They chase lifestyles that look good on social media but feel empty in real life. They accumulate possessions that impress others but don't fulfill them. But when you take the time to focus on yourself, to really ask what matters to me, you gain clarity, and clarity is power. I once had a successful executive in one of my seminars. By all external measures, he had made it. Beautiful home, luxury cars, impressive title. But there was a sadness in his eyes that his smile couldn't hide. During a break, he approached me and said, "Jim, I feel like a fraud. I've achieved everything I thought I wanted, but I'm miserable. I hate my job, I'm disconnected from my family, and I'm always exhausted." I asked him a simple question. When was the last time you sat in silence and asked yourself what you really want, not what you think you should want? He couldn't remember, so I gave him homework, 30 minutes of silence every day for a week. No phone, no TV, no distractions. Just him and his thoughts. A month later, he called me. His voice was different, energized, peaceful. He had resigned from his high-paying job to start a small consulting firm that allowed him to work from home. He was making less money but had dinner with his family every night. He had sold his large house and moved to a smaller place closer to nature. For the first time in decades, he told me, "I feel like I'm living my own life, not someone else's idea of what my life should be." That's the power of focusing on yourself. It cuts through the noise of other people's expectations and connects you with your own truth. Now, let's talk about another benefit of staying silent. You become a better observer. Most people are so busy talking that they miss the subtle but powerful clues the world is giving them. They miss market trends. They miss relationship dynamics. They miss opportunities disguised as problems. But when you're silent, you see more. You notice patterns. You pick up on subtleties. You become a student of life rather than just a participant. I've always been fascinated by successful investors, the ones who consistently outperform the market decade after decade. You know what they have in common? They're observers. They watch, they listen, they analyze. They don't make noise. They make decisions based on what they see, not what they say. Warren Buffett doesn't spend his days on financial news shows. He spends his days reading, thinking, and observing. His success comes not from making noise, but from making sense of the noise others make. The same principle applies to every area of life. The best parents are keen observers of their children. The best teachers are astute observers of their students. The best leaders are perceptive observers of their teams. When you stay silent, you create space to observe, and observation is the foundation of insight. Another benefit of silence is that it makes your words more valuable. When you speak less, people listen more. I've noticed that the most influential people in any room are rarely the most talkative. They're the ones who speak only when they have something worth saying, and when they do speak, everyone leans in to listen. Why? Because their silence has created value for their words. They haven't diluted their message with constant chatter. They haven't devalued their opinions by offering them on every topic. They've been selective, intentional, measured. In a world where everyone is shouting for attention, silence makes you stand out. It gives weight to your presence and power to your words. Now, some of you might be wondering, Jim, if I'm silent about my goals and focus on myself, how will opportunities find me? Don't I need to network, to promote myself, to put myself out there? That's a fair question. And the answer is yes, but not in the way most people think. You don't attract opportunities by talking about what you're going to do. You attract them by quietly becoming the person who can do what others only talk about. You don't need to announce your value. You need to demonstrate it consistently over time. I tell my students, don't worry about recognition. Worry about being worthy of recognition. Because here's the truth. The marketplace is always watching. It's always evaluating. And it rewards value, not noise. When you focus on creating value through your skills, your character, your contributions, opportunities will find you. You won't have to chase them. You won't have to announce them. They will appear almost magically at the right time and in the right way. But this requires patience. It requires faith in the process. It requires the discipline to keep working, keep growing, keep serving, even when it seems like no one notices. Most people give up too soon. They plant seeds today and dig them up tomorrow because they don't see immediate sprouts. They start a new diet Monday and abandon it by Wednesday because the scale hasn't moved. They try a new marketing strategy and declare it a failure after one attempt. But success doesn't work that way. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Progressive, step by step, day by day, silent, consistent effort compounded over time. I've observed that the people who talk the most about what they're going to do often accomplish the least. Why? Because talking gives you the illusion of action without the reality of results. It's a counterfeit form of achievement. Real achievement happens in the quiet moments when you're doing the work no one sees. It happens in the early mornings when you're reading while others are sleeping. It happens in the late nights when you're practicing while others are partying. It happens in the small daily decisions that seem insignificant in the moment but massive in their cumulative effect. As I've traveled around the world speaking to millions of people, I've noticed something interesting. The audiences that ask the most questions often implement the fewest ideas. They're too so busy talking about what they might do that they never get around to doing anything. But the audiences that listen intently, take notes quietly, and ask few but profound questions, they're the ones who send me letters years later sharing their success stories. They're the ones who took the ideas, personalized them, and silently implemented them until they produced results. That's the power of staying silent. It creates space for action rather than just words. Now, let me address a common misconception about silence. Some people think that staying silent means never speaking up, never sharing your ideas, never expressing your thoughts. That's not what I'm advocating. Strategic silence is not the same as permanent silence. There's a time to speak and a time to be silent. Wisdom knows the difference. Speak when you have something valuable to contribute. Speak when your words can educate, inspire, or challenge others in a positive way. Speak when silence would be cowardice rather than strategy. But stay silent when you're tempted to. Complain without offering solutions. Criticize others to make yourself look better. Share goals you haven't fully committed to. Speak on subjects you haven't studied. React emotionally without thinking clearly. Feel silence because it makes you uncomfortable. I've found that one of the most powerful forms of self-discipline is learning to control your speech. It's not just what you say, it's what you don't say that shapes your life and your legacy. Words have power, power to heal or hurt, build up or tear down, inspire or discourage. The person who understands this power uses it wisely, sparingly, intentionally. In my decades of studying successful people, I've observed that they tend to be masters of their words. They don't let words fly out of their mouths without consideration. They understand that words create worlds both for themselves and for others. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you're not just practicing a productivity technique, you're embracing a philosophy of life. You're saying, I choose to be defined by my actions, not my announcements. I choose to be known for my results, not my rhetoric. This philosophy requires courage. It's easier to talk than to act. It's easier to make promises than to fulfill them. It's easier to start than to finish. But the rewards are worth it. When you commit to this path, you'll begin to notice changes, subtle at first, then increasingly profound. You'll find that your energy increases because you're not wasting it on meaningless chatter and social media debates. You'll find that your focus sharpens because you're not constantly seeking external validation. You'll find that your productivity soars because you're directing your resources toward growth rather than gossip. You'll find that your relationships deepen because you're present with people rather than performing for them. You'll find that your self-respect grows because you're living in alignment with your values rather than just talking about them. And most importantly, you'll find that everything in your life begins to fall into place. Not because the world suddenly becomes perfect, but because you become better equipped to handle its imperfections. Your finances improve not because money magically appears, but because your increased value to the marketplace generates increased income. Your health improves not because aging stops, but because your daily disciplines create vitality that defies age. Your relationships improve not because other people change, but because you bring more wisdom, patience, and value to them. Your happiness improves not because problems disappear, but because your capacity to deal with them expands. This is the promise of focusing on yourself and staying silent, a life that works. Not a perfect life, but a progressively better one. Not an easy life, but a meaningful one. Not a life free from challenges, but a life equal to them. So, my friend, I encourage you to embrace this philosophy. Make the decision today to invest in yourself, your mind, your skills, your character. Make the decision to let your actions speak louder than your words. Make the decision to build in silence and let the results make the noise.